Mitchell County is home to 4 living treasures and 1 recipient of the Folk Heritage Award. These designations are awarded by the state to recognize cultural and artistic achievement in its citizens. Mitchell County has more living treasures than any other county in North Carolina. They include chairmaker Arval Woody, who has made chairs for each North Carolina governor since the 1950s, and for President John F. Kennedy's family. Blacksmith Mike Hensley, who learned the trade from a descendant of Daniel Boone and has since passed the craft on to his son Mike. And basket maker Billie Ruth Sudduth, who left behind a career as a psychologist and now has her work displayed in the Smithsonian Institute. This is also the home of fiddle player Oscar "Red" Wilson, who received the North Carolina Folk Heritage Award in 2003. Red has written many original songs and played with some of the biggest stars in the early days of bluegrass music. Together, these artists represent the finest collection of craftspeople in North Carolina, each one preserving tradition and yet, at the same time, each creating unique, original work.
Well, I was born and raised here, right here in Mitchell County, within a mile of where we are right now. Well, after the war, jobs is hard to come by, and since the work had been done by my family members for many years, we decided, well, that might be the best thing we could do is to go into chair business. So that's what we did. So there were 4 brothers to begin with in the shop, and they're all dead now. I'm the last in the line. We have our own sawmill, and we buy logs and sawed lumber. I use walnut, cherry, maple, oak, and ash. We can turn out about 6 chairs in a day. That's a chair that my granddad made about 100 years ago, made on the same principle that we do today. That was my grandfather. He was Arval Woody, and he was the chair maker. And his dad was Henry Woody, and he was the chair maker. And Henry's dad was White Woody, and he was the chair maker. So we know it dates back that far in our family. That shows the picture of the 2 little chairs that I made for Carolyn and John Jr. Kennedy back in 63. The one that we made for Carolyn is in the Kennedy Museum in Boston. And the one that we made for John, just before he was killed in the plane crash, he donated it to a charity, and the charity sold it to a member of the British Parliament for $10,000. Well, practically every governor in the state of North Carolina has got our chairs. We've been in National Geographic 3 times, and I have no idea how many magazines that we've been written up in. And to begin with, we had a hard time making a go of it. But now it's the other way around. We have a hard time keeping up with orders. The people who bought the chairs then, their children and grandchildren is coming and buying chairs. So it's just grown like that.
I was fortunate enough to be a neighbor of Daniel Boone, the 6th generation at Burnsville. And Daniel was, he was a tremendous blacksmith. And I was just a little fellow, I'd stand in his door and watch him work. It kind of got to digging on me. I'd like to beat on that anvil, you know. And so when I finished high school, I said, Daniel, what about going to work for you? And he said, come on in. And that's where I got started. And he gave me a good boost in the right direction. A wonderful fellow to, you know, to be able to work with.
I was 4 years old when I started working with him. So he and I have been working together about 52 years now. Every craftsman is descended from somebody or something that was practical. I mean, our quilters, our basket makers, everything now is art, but it was a necessity. It was a necessity to have the quilts and baskets and everything and the wrought iron in a log cabin. I mean, it was not only decoration, but you had to have it as a utilitarian product to live. But out of that, it has grown into an art. I think due to our heritage here, not necessarily in Mitchell County, but a great deal of it's in Mitchell County, that we are looked at not only for minerals and gems, but for our craftsmen. Basically, word of mouth is the only thing only kind of advertisement. We don't have a telephone here. We don't have computers or anything like that. We're not online or anything. It's basically the reputation and building a better product.
I was told by one of the newspaper people that we were wrote up at one time, was it 2,700 foreign newspapers? And that gives us a lot of publicity. And then we've been on a lot of television shows and so on and so forth like that.
Well, basically, as you see, it's a candle holder, but it started out as a paperweight. It's the mountains to the sea. This is our interpretation of a chinkapin leaf that's native to the Appalachian Mountains. Then you come out of the mountains or wind down out of the mountains through the Piedmont to the seashore. This is a fishtail scroll, but it also represents the waves on the North Carolina coast. They're starting a new program on UNC TV, and they're using it from the mountains to the sea. And so we had to give them permission to use it, but this is kind of their logo for the program. From the mountains to the sea, our interpretation of North Carolina. We have visitors from all over the world come in here. I want to say up into the thousands.
A lot of people, while we're working, they like to just come in and they'll stand over here and watch us. They're not really particular in getting a job or anything like that. And we've had anywhere from 1 or 2 to 50 in here at one time, and we just go ahead and work because that's what they want us to do.
We have work in every country except Russia and Red China. It literally spans the world.
I was a school psychologist for almost 20 years, and one year I was teaching a math and a basket class, and it's really a curriculum I developed where I went back in the middle schools and taught math concepts through basket making, because I think a lot of craft forms are very scientific or mathematically based. The primary influence on my work is Fibonacci's nature sequence. And Fibonacci was a 13th century Italian mathematician who figured out that throughout all the spirals in nature, the same proportions occur, whether you see the spirals in a seashell or a pine cone or a flower petal. But my baskets duplicate the same proportions that you might see in a chambered nautilus or a sunflower. And it influenced Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture and Michelangelo's statue of David, Da Vinci's art, Bartok's music, because people really respond to the natural flow, the movement of the baskets, without really knowing why. And it's because of this very ancient theory that Fibonacci figured out. Basically, I make two very distinct styles of baskets. The Appalachian baskets sit flat, are based on tradition, and really will hold your objects. But the shaker baskets are cat's head in shape, and I weave them upside down for about a third of the way. And the way I get this shape is pulling very tight on the weaver and pulling in on my corners so that I create the ears and the face of the cat. And when I turn it upside down, it will become the feet and the body of the basket. Basically sit up here in Mitchell County and make baskets, and I'm totally amazed at some of the people that come up my driveway. I love it. I think that's what has made me feel like I've got to make the best possible work that I can make. But it's all just, sort of evolved, and being made a living treasure and having the Smithsonian acquire a piece are probably the highlights of my career. And I think the effect that it's had on me, even though my husband said I've found a way to make a living with my compulsiveness, is it has made me more aware of what I'm making, and that I want it to be the absolute best that I can do, because I feel like I'm not only representing me and my work, but it's almost like the county and the state, and with this title that it is something to be taken seriously, and I'm very honored and very humbled by it. Sort of validates what you do, but to me, there's nothing any more special than somebody that lives up the road from me calling and saying, I would really like to get a basket for my mom for Mother's Day. That means as much to me as the ones that go to the museums, because I know that the people, really do want it and the people that go to all the trouble of coming up here to see me is really special too, because I think it lets me know that they are interested in what I do and want to see the pieces and the collection. You know, I would like to be remembered for sort of elevating basketry off the floor and onto a pedestal, because so many people tend to think of baskets as something very utilitarian that you throw your newspapers in. And I've really tried to create baskets that bring beauty to people. But you know, as a mother and a grandmother, and the values that I instill in my children and grandchildren, and hopefully sharing my creativity with them, and I think the teaching that I've done of basketry, that the craft form will survive. And I'm sure it will, because it's the oldest craft form around. It predates pottery, and I feel like I'm just a little piece of history, perhaps passing through with what I've contributed to the field. The whole secret of basket making is very profound but very simple. All you got to know to make a basket is over, under. And every basket maker on the planet goes over and under. And what separates one of us from the other is what we go over and under, the materials we use, and the pattern we put in. And I think one reason I love it so much is that there is this natural rhythm to it. It's almost like I'm playing music, but you see the music I make rather than hear it. I think that's the difference between what I do and, say, somebody that's a blacksmith and is playing with the anvil and you can hear the music.
Okay, I'm going to play one that I wrote myself, and I named it after my wife. I call it Marie's Waltz. It's the last tune I wrote. Well, my name is Oscar, my real name, but they call me Red. So I go with Red. I was born in Avery County in 1920, February the 20th, 1920. They passed it on down, like it was passed down to me, My dad played fiddle and guitar and banjo too. And we'd go down on Saturday night to that little schoolhouse and play, and there'd be a big crowd of people come in to listen to us. Well, that's the first time I ever played in public. It's a different style than most other styles. They've a Kentucky style, and every state's about got a different style of playing. But here in the old mountains, we call it Appalachian style. Well, I went to the Army in 41 and stayed in the Army 4 years. And when I got out of the Army, in fact, I got wounded in Italy. And I was in the hospital, and I'd met my wife, met my girlfriend, let's put it that way. I'd met her when I was come home on leave, But I got wounded in Italy, and they sent me back to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to an Army hospital. And when I got out of the hospital down there, we got married. And we've lived in Mitchell County ever since.